I had a friend many years ago who smoked 40 cigarettes a day. And he reached a point in his life when he was determined to quit. So he tried cold turkey. Wednesday he was smoking 40. Thursday he tried his best to smoke 0. And that didn't work for him. So he had to figure out another way to get over this addiction. So he decided to go the incremental route, reducing his smoking 1 cigarette per day each day until he reached 0. Just like my friend was addicted to nicotine, you have an addiction that you struggle with in your construction company. That addiction is building projects. You love it, don't you? You get a kick out of building projects. If you didn't, you wouldn't be in the position of leadership you're in. And if you've started your own company, you never would have started your own company unless you actually enjoyed the process of building projects. And that addiction has served you well. It has generated wealth for you. It has generated satisfaction, but it's also hindering you. You see, just like smoking damages your lungs, your addiction to building damages your ability to develop other people and be an effective leader. And just like my friend committed to incrementally reducing the number of cigarettes he smoked, you need to commit incrementally to developing your people so that you can quit your addiction to building and be more focused on leading. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Welcome to Construction Genius. My name is Eric Anderton. In this episode, we're going to talk all about how to incrementally develop your people. And there's 3 things we're going to talk about. Number 1 is the 2 areas of development. Number 2 is the process of development. And number 3 is the outcome of development. And the process I'm going to share with you here today is something that you can apply in all areas of your construction business. But for the moment, I'd just like you to think of yourself. Maybe you need to cast yourself back a little bit in your career, or perhaps right now you're currently a project manager. But the framework I'm going to use just for this discussion is a project manager developing his project engineer in order to step up and run more of the work so the project manager can work on higher level tasks such as preparing for effective meetings and developing relationships with clients. So let's start off by talking about the 2 areas of development. If you think about your typical PE who's been with the company maybe 2 to 5 years, what areas does he or she need to develop in? Well, there's 2 areas, is technical and relational. What do we mean by technical? Well, they need to be able to walk onto a project and understand the progress of where the project's at and how your particular scope of work fits in. They should be able to walk on, and as a result of that, understand where they need to be proactive in promoting the best interests of your company. Now, you know that a PE fresh out of college doesn't have that instinct or that eye to understand where the project is and where your company fits in, but that's one area they need to develop in. That's a technical area. As a result of that, they'll be able to give the crew the right support. And as I said, they'll be proactive in promoting the best interests of your company and also able to report back to you with an accurate update of where the project is. Not only do they need to develop their technical skills, their technical eye, so to speak, they also need to develop their relational skills. And the very best construction professionals have that wonderful combination of technical acumen and relational insight. And one of the best ways to do that is to identify upfront at the beginning of the project the hot buttons of your customers. And whether you're a subcontractor working for a GC or a GC working for a developer or an owner, every one of your customers has certain hot buttons, things that are important to them. And Savvy construction pros are excellent at identifying those hot buttons and making sure that the customer is satisfied in those areas. And why is that important? Well, it's important because it helps you to get them on your side. You need the GC or the owner on your side if you're going to build a project profitably. And how can you get them on your side? Well, the first thing you can do is to make yourself available. And this is one thing that you always want to communicate to your project engineers as you're developing them, is make yourself available to the client. Make sure that you are responsive to them. Make sure that you're keeping your commitments. Make sure that you're communicating clearly. And be the person who is bringing to them positive feedback and suggestions that can benefit them. See, you don't want to be the guy who is late showing up, who is incomplete in their communication. You don't want to be that person. And it's so important to get the owner or the GC on your side, because once that is taking place, it gives you leverage to give them input on things like planning and things like schedule. And as a result of that, that can help you to minimize your costs and speed up delivery. So if you're going to be able to develop your people internally, you have to make sure that they're developing their technical skills and their relational skills. So the next thing we want to talk about is the process of development, because this process of development, as you can tell, it's a heavy process, right? Again, you get a young man or young woman who've got the best intentions in the world, but they've still got stuff to learn. They've got to get their technical chops up. They've got to get their relational skills up, and they've got to be able to combine those to win over their customers, build the respect with other project partners and folks in the field. So how can that process occur? Well, I'd like to suggest a very simple process that takes time, but it's incremental in nature and something that every one of you as a leader can do. And it's called the drive-around process. Here's how it works. It begins with you driving the truck out to the job site, and your PE is sitting shotgun with you. And as you're driving onto the job site, you're pointing out all of those areas that you just instinctively see that give you information and that help you to understand what needs to occur in order for the project to be built profitably. But you're driving along with them and you're just educating them. You're kind of taking them by the hand. You're pointing out the various things that they need to look for. You're bringing them into the conversations with the owner or with the GC, and they have an opportunity to observe you in your negotiations, in how you're showing up, in how you're responding to information requests, all of the things that drive that wonderful combination of technical skill and relational skill. And as you're driving off of the job site after a job visit, what do you do then? You debrief it with them. You make sure that they understand what you're looking at, why you're doing what you're doing, what's important for them to be thinking about as they're going on a job site, as they're running a project. After you've done that for a period of time, and the period of time is going to vary, obviously, you switch up the roles where they're driving and you're shotgun. And what that means is that you're observing them as they go onto the job site, as they interact with the crews, as they figure out what needs to be done and where your company needs to position itself in terms of its scope of work to maximize your effectiveness and profitability. And you give them an opportunity to interact with the owner, because one of the big hindrances to you breaking that addiction to building and breaking your need to be involved in every single project is the fact that you're the one who's really good at developing the relationships with the owners. But you want to give them that opportunity to develop the relationship so that they become the go-to person. And then after you're finished with that job site visit, what you don't want to do, let me just go back, what you don't want to do during that job site visit is intercede too much in their decisions and in their communications at that point. Now, of course, if there's a massive mistake they make and you can, make sure that that doesn't happen, then of course you intercede. But you get my point, right? You want to take time afterwards to debrief with them. You want to be able to say, okay, you walked on the site. What did you see? Tell me about it. How did that conversation go? Let me give you a few tips based on what I saw. This is how you handle this particular situation. All of that kind of breakdown. And you want to do that as immediately after the fact as possible. And then as you're doing that after a while, you get to the point where they should be able to drive onto the job site themselves, by themselves, without you having to be there. And that's what you're aiming for. You're aiming for the people that report to you to be developed sufficiently so that you don't have to be there. But you've trained them to see a project through your eyes. They understand how you develop relationships. They understand what's important to your company because they've watched you do it. They've then been on the job site practicing themselves, and you've given them feedback. And now they're able to go onto the job site, interact with your crews, interact with project partners, other subs, the owners, and really do an effective job of running a project. So again, that process of development, you drive, they're shotgun. Then they drive and you're shotgun, and then they're all by themselves reporting back to you. All right, so we've talked about the two areas of development. We've talked about the process of development. And now let's talk about the outcome of development. And this is one of the wonderful things that you want to be aiming for. The way I think about the outcome of development is pretty simple. Number one, they are comfortable. So when you're having a meeting with them in the morning and you're asking them, hey, where are you going today? And they're saying, oh, I'm going to go out to this job site. They have an air of confidence about them. They don't have the deer in the headlights look. They don't have that look in their face where they're hoping that you come with them, right? Because they don't want to talk to that scary superintendent, or they don't have a relationship with the owner and therefore they can't negotiate effectively over change orders and things like that. You want them to have that confident air. And the second outcome of development is that you're comfortable. And you know that person can go out to the job site and that they see things the way that you see them, and that they'll take care of those issues the way that you want them to take care of it. And as a result of that comfort level, what happens? You're free. They're comfortable, you're comfortable, and now you're free to work on those higher level tasks, such as planning effective meetings, so that you can conduct your meetings with your teams in a way that really addresses issues in a manner that helps your company to move forward. And also you can work on higher level customer relationships. And this is one of the keys in development that you really want to focus on. And you know this as you get into senior roles. It's really a relationship game. And you want to develop those long-term relationships with the clients who have the types of projects that you want to build, and spend time with them, getting to know them, building that trusting relationship, so that when they have a new project come up, they don't think about the other guys right away, they think about you. And as a result of thinking about you, you get an opportunity to shape the bidding process, to shape the planning process, perhaps even to get last look when you're bidding a project. You know how that goes. And so this process of development is really, really important. But you might think, Eric, I really like building. And I'll say this to you, fair enough. If you really like building, continue what you're doing. But if you want to develop people and cause your company to grow beyond yourself, you have to get better at incrementally developing your people. So what you want to do is, let's say we've been using this PMPE analogy throughout the podcast. And again, don't think of your PE as just like another tool that you can use. Your PM shouldn't be thinking of PEs in that way. They are human beings and potentially they are future leaders of your organization. And so you want to give them the opportunity to develop themselves. So get with them, identify what they need, identify the areas of technical and relational skills that they need, and begin to set up a plan for working with them. So remember those two realms of development, technical and relational, the process of development, that ride-along process that I described, and then finally the outcome of development, that comfort that both you and your direct report gets, and then the freedom that you get as well to focus on higher level tasks. So like I said, my friend, he smoked 40 cigarettes a day. And it's really interesting, when I knew him, really neat guy, when I knew him, he wasn't a smoker. And he described to me one day the process that he went through. And I think one of his motivations is that I used to smoke cigarettes back in the day. And he described to me what he did. Day one, he had 39 cigarettes because the day before he had 40. And then he went 38, 37, 36, 35, all the way down to 0. And he quit smoking. So when I knew him, he was a non-smoker. And if you've ever smoked cigarettes, you understand that going from being a cigarette smoker to being a non-smoker is a massive leap. And it's a pretty neat leap to take. So it's that incremental process that worked for him. And in the same way, incrementally developing your people will work for you. So what are your next steps? Again, like I said earlier, figure out what your people need to learn. And I'm going to put a tool into the show notes. I call it the 90-day high performance dashboard, something that my clients use with their direct reports to help them to focus for 90 days on an area of improvement that can be beneficial to them. So you can download that tool. It's very simple. It's a 2-page document that's self-explanatory, but it can be a tremendous coaching resource for you as you're working with your people and as you are incrementally developing them. My name is Eric Anderton. Again, thank you for listening to Construction Genius today. Feel free to share the podcast with people who you think would benefit from listening to it. Give us a rating or a review. Feel free to always give me feedback. Did you find this episode useful? If so, let me know. I'm always open to feedback. I always like to know how these are being received. And again, thanks for listening to Construction Genius today. Today's episode was brought to you by the Construction Conclave. If you as a construction leader would like to develop your skills and get involved in a community of like-minded construction professionals who are focused on building healthy teams, profitable projects, and long-term successful businesses, then the Construction Conclave is for you. It's a private, invitation-only group of construction leaders that are focused on developing their leadership skills. We do training every single month online that looks at how to become a better leader in a very practical, straightforward way. We also have other events that build community and camaraderie so that you can associate with others who are interested in developing their skills as leaders. If you'd like more information and to see if you qualify for participating in the conclave, feel free to reach out to me, eric@ericanderton.com. Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes, share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit, and thanks again for listening.